What's up, folks? Welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I'm with 𝗦𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗹. She is a clairvoyant. She's a remote viewer. I guess I could say psychic, right, Elizabeth? Would that be better fitting? What I like about you, and I watched a few of your videos. You've been on some big podcasts. Your channel's growing tremendously, which is props to you. What I like about you is that you're on the same page with me in the aspect of we are dismantling the deep state. We are dismantling the old guard. And these next 5 years are going to be something for the history books, correct?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Like we're in the thick of it right now.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, you know, the ballroom that Trump is building is going to have an underground bunker, medical facility. I mean, it's going to be able to withstand drone attacks. I mean, what the hell's coming here? I mean, this is getting pretty crazy. 3 assassination attempts on him already. You know, I've said that we've neutralized threats. The ICE raids were to neutralize the terrorist cells in America that would have been activated when we go to war with Iran, when we go after Maduro cartel cells, Iranian Hezbollah, Hamas cells. Those were neutralized with the ICE raids, the first round of ICE raids. Then we got Maduro. Now we're on to neutralizing Iran. This is all about the dismantling process, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to really keep in mind, and I'm sure, you know, your community and viewers know this, but everything we're being fed and presented in mainstream media is only a very small portion of the truth. And there is so much happening in the background that we're just not aware of. And obviously, as a remote viewer, that's where I come in and I can see things that are happening behind the scenes. But for me, it's also a balance between knowing what's going on without getting too emotionally wrapped up in it, because I do believe that our focus creates our reality, and we need to be okay with the dismantling, but we also need to start taking full responsibility around our own lives, dismantle what doesn't work, and then, you know, step it up in all the other ways. So it's kind of like, where do you put your focus, your time and energy, and what do you really want to start impacting at this time?
So what's the most people need to understand that the dismantling of the deep state is a delicate surgical process. Because why? The reason is because we cannot spiral into civil unrest and therefore civil war, correct? We cannot alarm grandma and the cat. It's got to be done in a way that is done with precision, surgical precision, right? It has to be done in a way that we don't alarm people to the extreme to where we spiral into this kind of civil unrest and civil war, right? I mean, is that something you're also very aware about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the same thing with cosmic disclosure as well. Like, we're inching ahead towards full disclosure. We're inching ahead towards full systematic shutdown in a positive way so that we can sort of recreate it. But it does have to be done in a delicate manner, so that there's not more damage than is what's needed.
So this is kind of like, you know, in my opinion, like what you do, basically remote viewing and being a psychic on top of that, using your abilities. This is like psychic warfare. Like you're like looking into things that people only dream about. So let's get into this. Yeah. And let's talk about also, you've also remote viewed people like Oprah Winfrey, celebrities like Oprah Winfrey, Erica Kirk.
Yep.
Can we get into some of that on this podcast as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've also done the Obamas as well, and Justin Bieber, Britney Spears. So from a long time ago, when I started remote viewing, you know, my biggest thing is like, who is the government? What are they really doing? What are these agendas and conspiracies? And one of the first thing that I started remote viewing was underground military bases, just to figure out what they're doing down there. And there was a lot going on. I mean, I stumbled across sort of genetic modifications and experiments, you know, in an attempt to sort of create a super soldier. I stumbled across bases that already had extraterrestrials, not necessarily in cages, but fully walking around with military personnel. I also stumbled across a very large facility that essentially was creating clones, biological sort of duplicates of celebrities and politicians which was very surprising to me. And most of this sort of initial remote viewing was done back in 2010, 2011, when I first started to train myself to get out of my body and go different places. So there's a lot to unpack there. And one of the things that I ended up seeing a lot of, actually, in a surprising way, were these, at the time I called them these giant dinosaur beings. Now, obviously, they're referenced as sort of reptilians. And this is sort of that, and cloning was something that I wanted to kind of sit on probably for the rest of my life. Like, I was truly planning on taking that information to my grave. A, because it sounds absolutely crazy. And B, because I really didn't feel safe in exposing the truth of what's really happening. And the fact that this world is not being run by, human beings. It's being run by something else altogether.
And we are, so another word for them is also the Dracos, correct? I mean, they are basically what controls humanity. Are we breaking the bondage? Are we breaking the slavery with them? I know we're used as, I guess a lot of people in the New Age community as well as said we're used as like energy or food for them. Basically, they basically farm humans, correct?
Yeah, so from what I've seen, they can consume our energy, which is a lot of the public rituals. Like, I know people may not agree with this, but like things like the Super Bowl or like really big concerts, are all sort of energy harvesting, and then also public forms of ritual, which allow us to consent to these crimes against humanity by not contesting it, right? So it's just like it's a very deep level of karmic manipulation, free will manipulation, and that's why they have to be so public about their involvement, and yet so secretive as well, so that we don't resist. And then there's also the physical consumption as well, both consuming human bodies and then also drinking our blood. And specifically, they have certain rituals that bring out the most amount of these sort of stress hormones, which is what they feed off the most. So there's usually a lot of torture involved in these rituals before they gather the blood and consume it. Now, from what I understand, these sort of Dracos or lizard people, they consume our body and our blood in order to sort of reverse age. So they don't necessarily need that to exist, but a lot of these celebrity figures have looked young for a very long time. I will say that back in 2020, there was a huge sort of world trafficking ring that was shut down, not completely, but a huge part of it was shut down, and it stopped a lot of gathering. And then the royal family sort of had a breaking point as well, with Queen Elizabeth passing away. And she was a very top tier member of this community and organization. So yes, we have seen the downfall, and now it's just, it's happening at an accelerated rate.
So if this is a movie here, I don't know if you've ever seen it, They Live. And this is one of the ways where the guy puts on glasses. This is like an 80s film. And he puts on sunglasses and he can see the reptilians or the beings that are in human bodies, right? That are possessing the human bodies are just reptilians are able to hold a human form. And he's able to see it whenever he wears these glasses. This is another example of how they make kind of fun of it or a mockery of it. And that's how they escape the karma, right? This is how they put it out there for people in Hollywood and commercials and things like that. And that's the loophole. That's how they escape their karma, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, because there is something called the law of non-intervention and the law of free will. And they sort of skirt in between the lines, and pretend to be humans so that we're not completely shocked. Now, I want to just like plant a seed for you and say that back in 2010 and 2011, when I was deep in all of this, I had this very clear future vision. Now, of course, when it comes to future things, there's an infinite number of probabilities and timelines, so nothing is ever set in stone. But this has really come back around, and I saw. I'm going to avoid the name, okay, because I don't want you to get in trouble or me to get in trouble. But let's say it was a very, very large pop singer, okay, and they were on stage in front of tens of thousands of people who all had their phones out, who were all streaming and recording. And
is this an astral world?
Sorry?
Was this astral world?
This was physical. This was a
no. I mean, I'm okay.
Oh, I see. No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Okay, my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, and so this individual who was on stage ended up not being able to hold their form and literally shapeshifted into this 7-8 foot tall giant, lizard person in front of all of these people, in front of all of their phones, in front of all of the recordings. And when we think about cosmic disclosure, we always think about like a giant UFO landing on the White House lawn. But what if disclosure happened in this form?
You're saying this is a future event to come.
This is a potential future event that is a very different form of cosmic disclosure. But I truly believe that in order for us to move into this new era, we have to understand that this world is being run by these off-world entities and beings.
What do you think the indigenous people talked about? The Hopis, the Apaches, they all talked about skinwalkers, shapeshifters, these beings that can, and I've seen, okay, I'm going to go into this again, but I've seen these trail cams before AI where these entities are walking the national forest and they're able to shapeshift. This has been caught on video, These are they come from different dimensions. I mean, they're able to hold a human form, a coyote, a hawk, whatever, and an animal. And Indians were very aware of this. We're very aware of these beings. These are the same thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of high strangeness and paranormal stuff. So shapeshifters could be entities and different things in different dimensions. Reptilians are a very specific thing, and they use different forms of technology in order to shapeshift. But yeah, so similar in a way, absolutely. Yeah.
So I've had a 𝗬𝗶𝗶𝗹 𝗠𝗃 on, and we've talked about this, and I think he's in the camp with the shape-shifting, and he says it's the way that they fool or control our perception of them. So they can appear as a gray alien, they can appear as a Bigfoot, they can appear as a giant, whatever form they want to take. Are you kind of in that camp as well?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways that they do it. One of the ways that I've seen since sort of the dawning of humanity is because we have reptilian DNA within us, and I believe we have a lot of different extraterrestrial DNA. I mean, that's what makes humanity and this planet so special, is that we are this giant hybrid project. And that's why they're so interested in us, like on and off planet. And essentially what they do is, part of their shapeshifting ability is they can track down humans of a high reptilian lineage, usually within the royal family. That's why they want to keep it within the royal family, so that they have that high amount of reptilian DNA. Or they end up targeting individuals who have high amounts of reptilian DNA in their lineage and bloodline, and then they sort of indoctrinate them into the Illuminati, or this sort of top secret shadowy government group. And what they can do is they can sort of like body snatch, in a sense. Like they can do like a full possession, and that's very easy for them to hop into that body just because of that high amount of reptilian DNA. I've also seen them have like actual technology devices. It's kind of like how do I put this? Like those invisibility cloaks that are like just a bunch of mirrors. It's something like that. It's kind of like a crystalline, sort of liquid crystal type of form that they can take, and it does sort of cloak their true form. And then when they're in high stress or pressure environments, their technology doesn't actually work as well. So that's where you can get some of the glitches, say like on TV or live broadcasting, which is fascinating. Then you have the clones, and you have the body doubles, and you have the programming. There's a lot of things that they have tried to hide their true intent and to hide their true manipulation and control.
I've heard that's why they love the blood drinking, right? Is to help them hold form. Or I think there was a lady, Arizona Wilder. Are you familiar with Arizona Wilder?
No.
Gosh, David Icke interviewed her years and years ago, probably in the late 90s, and she was talking about how she as a child was trafficked amongst the royals and certain politicians, and how she saw them when they were feasting on human blood, they would shapeshift. She would see them change forms, like orgasmic, and they would get excited and they would shapeshift into different things. But one of them was, I mean, one of what they would shapeshift into would be reptilians. And she was, you know, I would watch those interviews and think to myself, this lady's not lying. She looks traumatized. I mean, she was like in her mid-30s at that point. I don't know where she's at now. I don't even know if she's still alive, but this is, you know, this is real. People need to understand this is a reality that we're living in, and we are like cattle to them.
Yep.
What so you've done some remote viewing. I know you do a lot of that. That's all you do. But like, so let me ask you this. How do you decipher between your like own imagination and what's real? You know, like how do you know this just is not some fantastical part of your imagination that you're just kind of making things up? Or how do you know it's exact and real?
Yeah, good question. So there's sort of two things. One is there's something called front loading within remote viewing. And essentially that means that you have a preconceived notion of the outcome of whatever it is that you're remote viewing. So for example, if I was remote viewing Donald Trump and I loved him, then my end result could be skewed. If I was remote viewing Donald Trump and I hated him, my end result could be skewed because of my own emotional attachment. So one of the things that I practice, and I've practiced not just this lifetime, but many lifetimes, is objective observation, being in a state of 0-point frequency and complete neutrality. I do not have an attachment around celebrities, politicians, politics in general. And I've seen good, bad, and ugly pretty much straight across the board. And so that being said, that's kind of my own morality check, right? As far as, do I have an emotional attachment? And if I even have an inkling of an emotional attachment, then I just simply don't remote view that thing. The other thing is, and I really battled whether or not to state this publicly just for my own safety, but back in 2025, I ended up getting certified as a remote viewer in something called SRV, which is Scientific Remote Viewing, which is a certification from the 𝗓𝗏 Institute, who does very specifically CIA military-based remote viewing, which essentially means it's blind. So you have another person give you blind coordinates, a series of random numbers, and from that series of random numbers, you go to a targeted location, you draw what you see in that targeted location, and then they're the ones who validate and verify that objectively you are either on or off target. I will say that I have been certified within scientific remote viewing and military style. So that was a really great objective, I think, an objective validation that I am indeed on target. And out of about 25 different targets that I have been presented in a blind way, I've been 25 for 25. I've never been off target in a scientific military style remote viewing.
Wow, that's incredible. That's like a superpower.
Yeah.
So I've had another guest on. His name just popped in my head. Darius Wright. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He says that he has remote viewed the firmament, the dome, right? And I know you've seen a lot of stuff that's below underground bases. Have you ever gone outside this planet, looked onto other planets, or what's outside this solar system, or what's outside the lower space orbit? Is there a firmament? That's something, that's always something I've been curious about. Have you ever seen past that?
Yeah. Okay. So I do have my own take on this, and
because I don't trust NASA.
Yeah, for
None
sure.
of us do, so
I mean, I don't trust NASA either, and so many of their images and everything have been doctored and completely faked, and it's like I don't know who's running that department, but it's not great.
No.
And also, I think that because NASA is covering so much up, especially the main thing that they're covering up is the extraterrestrial involvement, right? And so the problem is that when NASA covers all this stuff up, it really feeds the fuel into, the flat Earth and some other conspiracies. I will say that at a global level, like on our planet, they are covering up extra land masses and other things that have not been disclosed that they will. And there's like no-fly zones, and there's giant holes in Antarctica that go into the inner Earth. Like I've seen all of that stuff. But I will say that in a sense, I'm not a flat earther because I have been off this planet. I have been to other planets, not just in my own self-directed remote viewing, but in this scientific double-blind remote viewing targets. I have been to other planets. For me, those planets have always looked round. Space is very real, and there's a very, very wide universe and other dimensions and things like that out there. That's just my take on it. That's just what I've seen. So, you know, I'm not here to convince anyone, especially if they haven't done their own remote viewing.
Right. And I'm not saying that I know anything. I'm saying I don't know. You know, for me, I'm just questioning everything. I just know that everything I was taught in school was a lie.
Yep.
Complete lie.
Exactly.
You know, from the Challenger explosion to 9/11 to everything's a lie. It's just a lie. And I just want to know what these beings are. I'm pretty sure that there's extraterrestrials on other planets. I'm pretty sure that there's other land masses on this Earth. I think there's a firmament. I think there's something we can't get past, but I'm not saying there's no outer space. I also believe in interdimensional intruders or interdimensional beings that are coming here that want to bring in this disclosure, this fake disclosure. What's your thoughts on that? How does that look right now? You know, there's a lot of UFO scientists and, you know, whistleblowers just you know, disappearing. Good friend of mine, 𝗵𝗶𝗱𝗶𝗶, just, you know, took himself out not too long ago. And, you know, it's a huge loss for the community, you know. So what's your thoughts on that?
So I ended up remote viewing 𝗵𝗶𝗱𝗶𝗶 yesterday. And I was a little apprehensive to do so just because it can be such a sensitive subject. But yeah, we've got a lot of scientists going missing and a lot of key figures in this field. And so here's what I saw. And as always, take it or leave it because it is so contentious. So what I ended up seeing, so how do I even put this? It's such a touchy subject.
Just remember we're on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw that there were frequencies around him that were being manipulated, that have been manipulated for a long time. The way that I saw it was like almost like radio frequencies. Okay. So they have technologies and I mean, the shadow governments have technologies, right, that can manipulate these energy waves. And you've got like these weird sort of Havana syndrome, like you've got some weird stuff happening with that. What I ended up seeing is they have the ability to essentially manipulate thought waves. Okay. They can sort of implant thoughts. And if you're not strong enough or you're not aware of this, then you believe that those thoughts are your own. They have been doing this to a lot of key people for a long time. And unfortunately, one of their victims was 𝗵𝗶𝗱𝗶𝗶. And that's essentially what I saw, was that it was him, but it wasn't him. And this has been going on with him. He's been a target of this for a very long time, up until the end. And by seeing that yesterday, and I know that they've had this technology and I know that they've done sort of these things before. And I also know that they cover up a lot of their targeted victims through sort of, you know, them doing that to themselves. That's like one of their biggest cover-ups, is like, yep, like it was this or it was that or whatever. And it wasn't, right? It was a targeted attack. And now I sort of call into question these other people that have ended their own lives, in the sense that, has this been a manipulation of the frequency and the brain waves and whatnot? And how do we defend ourselves against something like that, you know, as a targeted attack? So that's essentially what I ended up seeing. And right now, the dark side is, they're scared, right? Like they can no longer recruit new people, right? They can't even hang on to their current people. No one wants to show up to these rituals anymore, because of everything that's gone down with Epstein and Weinstein and Diddy. It's like everything is getting disclosed right now. And so everyone is very scared who is in that industry. And so they are trying to push any sort of agenda, any sort of power. Like they're at the end of their rope, and they're trying to bring as much fear, as much distraction, as much depopulation as possible, you know, at this time. And anyone who is a big force to be reckoned with is being taken out because they're threatened, and they're getting sloppy about it too. They don't even care that people are questioning because they're just so scared.
You can absolutely see they're losing the grip of control, right? We've kind of made this shift, this paradigm shift, and I think we can all feel it. And people are, and the awakening process is happening full speed, warp speed right now, faster than I've ever seen it. From 2020 to now, look how leaps and bounds, and then from 2024 to 2026, leaps and bounds.
Yep.
So what do you see happening in the next, let's just do small window here from 2026 to 2030?
Yeah. Okay. It's going to get worse before it gets better. I've been saying that for years, and it has been getting worse. So basically between 2025 to 2028, we have the collapse, right? The absolute collapse of the old systems. By the time we get into 2028 and 2030, we're going to see a lot of the new. It's going to be a lot of like environmental focused, removal of plastics, a lot of like disease curing, a lot of like frequency technologies, free energy technologies. They're really trying to put a stop to these new solutions right now. But like I said, like there's too many of us. They can't stop us. They're trying, but they just can't. So we've got a battle right now back and forth. By the time 2028 rolls around, it's kind of like they've lost the fight. And those new solutions for all of humanity at a collective level, not just at a country or state level, are really going to start presenting themselves. So yeah, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Two big things that I keep seeing, well, really three things, right? One is cosmic disclosure. I really see that that's going to happen in 2026. Yeah, more sightings for sure. That's kind of tricky because we do have AI right now. So it's like, who's believing anything? That's tough, but we are going to have more cosmic disclosure at a government level, which is a really soft version of disclosure, but it's going to hit a lot of sort of people who haven't questioned the narrative. It's going to hit them pretty hard. We're going to see that really kicking off in 2026 and just continuing on. And then there's like sort of two main agendas that the shadow government has been talking about and playing with for the past year, and they're really starting to initiate it. Okay. One is sort of World War III, nuclear war. Okay.
But that's why we eliminated the Iran threat, correct?
So that's a part of it. That's a part of it. And yeah, it's like both sides are playing with the current circumstances to edge closer and closer to either a one government or, just freedom and sovereignty. Right. So, and then there's going to be a breaking point and a separation. That was the first thing that I saw when I remote viewed 2026 was a giant nuclear mushroom cloud. It could be the fact that we get to a point where, a good portion of the population on planet Earth wake up one day and they swear that the world ended the day before, right?
Wow.
Like it could get to a point where we actually have a giant Mandela effect of people remembering that this indeed happened. And at a quantum mechanics level, those individuals are the glitch, right? And they remember sort of an alternate timeline, and then they hopped over to this timeline, which is the collective evolution. It's the Ascension timeline. And then the old timeline, the old Earth, the new order timeline ended completely. That is a good possibility. Apparently, there was an organization of other remote viewers, 5 of them, who also saw the same thing, a giant mushroom cloud for 2026. So that's a possibility that they've been playing with of, hey, if we're not going to win this, then we're going to end it.
Yeah, they're going to end the game. They're just going to throw the chessboard up and say it's over.
And now we can't have any fear around this because remember, the world has already ended an infinite times before because of quantum mechanics and an infinite number of timelines and probabilities. That all exists, but all of the other things exist too. I mean, technically you've died many times before, and now here you are in this timeline where you haven't died. Or technically I'm wearing an infinite number of different things talking about the very same thing because those are just timelines and probabilities. So the end of the world is not actually something to fear because it has ended before and we've all stayed around. So it's like, understand that that's a possibility, and it's a possibility that they're trying to make us focus on by making us believe that this war is the end of the world, that the book of Revelations is the end. And yet there is a beginning, there is a Christ consciousness, and it's not about Jesus coming down from the sky. It's about that Christ consciousness, or that Jesus frequency coming through all of us, right? We all step into that profound sense of unconditional love. And then I will say the other thing too, okay, and they have been playing this out, and I don't know about you over there in Texas, but it is, so their next big fear and depopulation agenda, okay, to bring down our frequency is a power outage situation. Okay?
EMP type of thing.
Yep. So, but they could blame this on a variety of things. Maybe
flares.
They blame it on aliens and it's Project Bluebeam. Maybe they blame it on a giant solar flare. Maybe they blame it on the war. Maybe they blame it on the oil crisis. Okay. Right now, they are shutting down the power grid in all over the states right now. Okay. Like, it's so crazy how just a week or two ago, like a quarter of all of San Francisco, their power just went out. But because it only went out for an hour and it got kicked back up, and they blamed, oh, there was some sort of fire at the power plant or whatever it is that they blame, they're testing the grid right now, and they're testing the reaction from the people. Just literally same week, okay? 1,300 homes in the neighborhood next to me, power went out. It was some weird power failure, but because it only went out for 3 hours, no big deal. They're testing the grid all over the USA right now to see how we would respond to this. Since I've been a remote viewer, I've been a prepper. That's just who I am, because shit's going to get worse before it gets better. Just prepare for that. That is their next big agenda that they're going to roll out, and they're going to blame whoever it is or whatever it is that they want to blame. But of course, it's not going to be from them, right? And so that's something that they're currently actively planning, potentially for 2026.
And I agree with you. And that's also goes with those, that letter in the alphabet, those boards where they talk about 10 days of darkness. I've heard it's about who pulls a plug first,
yep.
Who owns the day, right? So it's like, if they do it,
yep.
This could be permanent. And then that leads to depopulation, deaths, the whole thing. But if we do it, it's just 10 days. We kickstart it back on. And that's the fight for that right now, from my understanding.
Right.
Let's talk about the reset, because they keep talking about this, the great reset, and I know like the finish line is 2030 to get a lot of this stuff wrapped up and done. The Davos crowd wants that to happen. World Economic Forum. Let's talk about how many is this? I've talked to other people that say we win this reset. We're going to win this reset, but throughout human history, we have not won the resets. It's been terrible for us. We've lost every single one of them. And this is the one we win. How do you feel about that?
No, I'm totally on board with that. So at more of like an astrophysics level, okay, our solar system is moving. I know this is going to sound totally off base, but like, hear me out, okay? There is like the center of the universe, and within the center of the universe is like source or God or like infinite energy, whatever you want to call it. The thing, it's like the machine, the energy, the fuel, the thing that fuels all conscious life here in this universe. Our solar system is going into, it's moving constantly and expanding, and it's moving closer to the center of the universe in a way that we saw back in ancient Lemuria and Atlantis, and then the fall of Atlantis, and then we went into the Dark Ages, because we actually were moving away from the center of the universe, or this like source frequency. What I'm getting at here is, yes, we are going to win, and there's really no other option other than just winning, because our frequency is increasing, and there's nothing and no one and no amount of power, money, control, or reptilian force that can stop us from increasing the vibration and moving into a place of unity and love and light and all the woo-woo bullshit things. But it's true. So yeah, absolutely. I see us winning this. And it is going to get messy, but we also have to remember that our souls signed up to be alive right here, right now, at this time, to not only witness it, but also do something about it. And sometimes just by observing, and making a different choice and choosing a higher frequency, that's enough to tip the scales, right? You don't have to be on a soapbox and preaching like maybe you or I, but you can make that effect and that change by just being a good human being, and choosing something other than darkness and control.
You know, I'm not claiming to be a clairvoyant or a remote viewer or nothing like that, but I do have some good spidey senses, and I got some great fighter instincts. You know, as a professional heavyweight fighter, that you gotta have those instincts to survive, right? You gotta have that, and I see this going in a direction where, yeah, it's gonna get ugly. There's gonna be a lot more exposure. That is why I think Trump is where he is right now. He's the great exposer, right? He's exposing everything. And it's going to get uglier. It's going to get a lot uglier because they're trying to, you know, grip tighter, their loss of control. And we're seeing this. And I do believe a scare type of event or an event happens to where it's going to shake humanity to the core, wake us up even further. The people that are still asleep, which it's hard to believe there still are some people asleep, but there is. It's even going to jolt them, right? So it's kind of like 2020. Which I hate to say it like this, but the people that were not awake, it took out a lot of the low-hanging fruit. We're coming into another phase of that where it's going to take out even the next batch of low-hanging fruit, right? Yep. And it's going to kind of go in phases like that, right? Like the next crop of people that are psyoped are going to go down. The next crop of people, like the people that. So, do you see that as well? It's going to be kind of like. It's almost like this elimination process. This is survival of the fittest. This is depopulation, because the people that are going to be getting taken out are going to be the casualties of this war.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Of the awakening war, right?
There's a lot of people that are taking very sudden exit points right now. Sometimes that's a freak accident. Sometimes it's a health crisis, or sometimes it's just a random brain aneurysm or whatever. Or sometimes it's them, making that choice. And
David Wilcock, there's an example.
So what I've seen, right, is that we have a large portion of these individuals who are taking these exit points are choosing that they don't want to be a part of the new earth or the high frequencies. They're not willing to make the change. They're not willing to admit their faults or, change as a human being and become a better human. So they're taking that exit point, whether it looks like willingly or not willingly. And then you've got this smaller portion of people who are taking exit points. And once again, like an exit point is completely contracted, but these individuals are the most beautiful, most powerful, most like awe-inspiring souls on the planet. And yet they're taking this early exit point specifically because their job here is done. They came here, they did what they came here to do, and they are now ready for another assignment. So you do have a lot of people taking these exit points, not just directly involved in the war, but just in general. It seems like people are dropping like flies, similar to 2020, but in such a different way. And so we are going to see this happen more and more as we kind of progress.
I've lost so many friends since 2020, man. It's off the scales, from self-deletions to, from to this, they took this or whatever. There's just so many people, but what I've realized too in my own self-development is that I had to let go of my ego to make the next step, right? Like I was all on ego. I was champ. I was, people would buy, I'd go to the restaurants, people would buy me meals. I was like a celebrity. I was like, especially in my hometown, I was the hometown hero, and that was everything. That's all I had. Yeah. And I was, I got to the point where I was 36-0 and all this crazy stuff. And then when I got knifed in the throat and I almost died twice, and then I got knocked out twice, sorry, goodbye, your ego's gone. I went from hero to zero really fast. And it was like the fall from grace was just tumultuous, right? It was just, it was like just the worst thing that ever happened to me. Yeah. But I rose from the ashes like the phoenix, and here I am doing podcasts, and I'm doing something completely different. I've gotten rid of my ego. I don't care about being wrong or right. I just want to know the answers, right? That's why these podcasts are doing well. Yeah. But, I now see the world from like this elevated state where I can see everyone just embedded and heels, into the ground on their ego. Everyone is just defending their ego. They got to be right. They're the guru. They're right about this. They're right about that. I have people that claim they're prophetics that come on my show and they're no, that person's right. Jesus said this, they didn't say, and it's just crazy. And everyone's fighting with their ego, right? I mean, that's going to be the detriment right there, right?
Yeah, bingo. No, nail on the head. Congratulations on you know, collapsing that. And it's a process. Like I believe that we have like 10 major ego deaths in our life, and then we have like an infinite number of minor ego deaths as well.
I've had about 100.
Yeah, no, I've had 3 just this year, so I'm right there with you. And you're totally right, you know. And in fact, a couple of years ago, I woke up at 3 a.m. like from a dead sleep, and I had this thought in my head, and it was something to the effect of, there is only one thing that every human being needs in order to ascend to the next frequency. One thing. And it was really surprising to me, because you know, you think good vibes or whatever, but no, the willingness to change. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. And what we're talking about here is the attachment to ego, or the attachment to identity. And it's not an ego. It's not always as overtly an ego as I'm the best that there is, right? Sometimes it's I'm a mother and I make sacrifices as a mother, and that's your attachment, and that's your ego, and that's your identity, and you don't even realize it. Or it's the programming from society of us believing what we have to do, and you know, it's just. So you're right, you know, as long as you're willing to change, and I'll actually kind of leave people off with a really good action item, okay? If you want to play with quantum mechanics, if you want to hop timelines, if you want to manifest, if you want to create abundance, if you want to switch up your life for the better, okay? If you want to ascend to the next level, right? Here's what I recommend. Every single day, once a day, you do something entirely new and different. Okay. So it could be brushing your teeth with your left hand. It could
I do that.
Yes. It could be taking a cold shower. It could be driving to work a different route. It could be trying a food that you're like, I hate, you know, Indian food, but like, try it, you know, you may not hate it right now, you know? And so like to the point where every once in a while, I'll like just clap, just randomly, just one clap in the middle of my day. And I'm like, yeah, in many other timelines, I didn't choose to do that. Or I'll take something random off my desk, like a pen, and I'll just chuck it across the room, you know, just to switch up the timeline. What we're doing is we're reprogramming our neural pathways in that moment. We're choosing to show up consciously, to do something random, to do something new, to hop into a different timeline, and then to also tell the universe, our higher self, or
that's
just
like
our future
butterfly
version,
effect.
I'm willing to change, you know, and it's not scary.
Is that like the butterfly effect in a way?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. You're literally playing with quantum mechanics in that way. And if you show up and you're okay with choosing to do something different every day, then you start this ripple effect, right? Just like the butterfly effect of now you can change your relationship. Now you can change your financial status. Now you can change your living situation. And the bigger things aren't as scary. The bigger changes aren't as scary because you're willing to show up for the small ones.
And that works in the gym too. That's why you have to do different exercises. Change it up, you know, and shock your body. And that's how you grow. That's how you improve. Before I let you go, I want to talk about some people you remote viewed just really fast. You've said you've done Justin Bieber, Oprah Winfrey, Donald Trump, Obama's. Let's just do a couple. You said you've remote viewed. Let's start with Oprah. Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, okay, cool. Oprah. So
and you don't have to go so dark or whatever. It's just vague, just a vague little.
Because all of my like long form videos on remote viewing people, not on my YouTube, but on my website. So if they're interested, they can go to my website to see that. Because I have like a whole video on Oprah. Yeah.
What's your website again?
It's 𝗬𝗓𝗡𝗋𝗋.com. Okay. Super simple. So with Oprah, you know, I don't know, like I grew up watching Oprah with my mom. You want to believe that she's like, you know, she's got Super Soul Sundays or whatever. I don't know. She's like, it looks like on the surface, she's doing some good things. But she is definitely a part of the Illuminati or the, you know, the shadow government. Obviously, all of these big figureheads and big names are just pawns. They're just puppets. And if anything, they're kind of victims in a sense, even though they're consenting victims. So it's kind of sad, but, you know, Oprah's not as much of a victim. So Oprah ended up doing a sacrifice early on in her career. So she was kind of just a reporter or a journalist.
We got to say allegedly, right? For YouTube.
Allegedly. Okay. Allegedly, from what I saw, she there was a sacrifice that ended up happening. I'm not sure who this was, but essentially someone close to her had passed away. And after that point in time, she was fully sort of brought into this group. It's sort of a gang initiation is what it looks like. And this is the same thing that I see time and time again with many of these really big political figureheads is political or celebrity figureheads is, you know, they will do some sort of initiation in order to get into the group for
right. Or you're on your way,
power.
you're on your way to fame, you're rising, you can't be stopped, and then that's when they approach you.
Yep.
Yep.
Because
you're kind of already there. You don't want to lose it.
Yep.
You love the clout, you love the money.
Yep.
And that's when they come in and say, oh, you like all this? Well, you know, come to this party at this time.
Yep.
And that's when they work on you.
Bingo. Yeah, they'll double it or they'll take it away. Like is like really the options.
And so that's what happened to Oprah.
That was Oprah. So I mean, she's been in it for a while. I did also confirm that, like, you know, her sexuality, like it seemed like she was she's not straight, essentially, is what came through.
Oh, I bet her and Hillary got well, you know.
I also confirmed with Barack Obama that his wife was from what I saw, allegedly born a male. I know that was a huge conspiracy, but when I was taking a look at both of them and remote viewing them, and that video came out, I believe or has it come out yet, in January? And that's on my website as well, the full video on the Obamas. And then with, unfortunately, Justin Bieber and Britney Spears as well. Allegedly a lot of programming. I mean, those poor kids were just really, really destroyed at a very young age and indoctrinated in the system. And so they've been a part of it for a very long time. And
I mean, look at them; they've both gone bonkers, man. They're both.
I know it's really sad.
I mean, if you look at Britney Spears' Instagram, that's all you got to see right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's pretty sad. So, yeah. And then who else? I did the Kardashians. That's actually coming out in April. So it'd be a long form video on my website about the Kardashians, remote viewing them. It really came down to their mother, which was fascinating. And actually, it's very similar to Michael Jackson's father, right? So it's I don't want to say it's rare, right? But like, sometimes the parents are already in the system and it's sort of natural to indoctrinate their children in the system. And then sometimes their parents are not in the system, like the case of the Michael Jackson's father and then the Kardashians' mother. And then they want the fame, they want the riches, they want the control. And so they indoctrinate their family or their children into it. And they sign up sort of on their behalf. Which is pretty sad. So,
you know, I'll say this about Michael Jackson's dad. I met him. I was in Vegas training, and he was watching me train.
Oh wow!
And I remember telling my trainer Rafael Garcia, who is Mayweather's cut man, I was like, man, I have horrible vibes with this guy, man. I just wish he would leave. I remember telling him, this doesn't feel good. The guy looks creepy. He's weird. He's sitting there in the corner. Had this face, like a demon, man. I'm telling you, like I felt this blackness around him. And he was just watching me in the gym. And, I did have that type of talent, but it was it was something else, man. It was just like seeing through me. He was like looking into my soul, man. And I remember feeling so uncomfortable. And I remember telling my trainer, I goes, can we cut it early today, man? And I never did that.
Yeah.
And that was Michael Jackson's dad.
Wow.
Let me ask you one more person here that's very, very controversial right now. My audience either goes for it or they don't. They either bite on it or they don't. Or I've even had some people, unsubscribe to me because of this. But Erica Kirk.
Oh, I know. It is so contentious as well. And I've had people drop podcasts because I've talked about it. And this is just what I saw. So it was a day or two after what had happened to Charlie, and I was remote viewing the scene and the situation, and immediately I said, the guy who they said did not do it. He was completely a pawn. He was completely a fall guy. He was disgruntled, and he did show up, and he was angry, and they told him to show up, and they specifically told him what to show up with and where to be at a certain time. But he was not the gunman. He wasn't the shooter.
Why would he agree to that though? I mean, did he have no choice?
No. They have a choice. These are individuals who do hate that side of politics, who are disgruntled, who are angry, and then they are contacted, usually contacted online, sometimes contacted in person, to say, do you really want to make an impact? Like, do you really then show up right here at this time? And there's usually some programming involved as well. Sometimes they'll go into a meeting and then they'll sort of wipe their mind. And then what they do is they put in a trigger word. And that trigger word is what's programmed in them. The second that they hear either that word or that series of words, it triggers a response in them. In this case, he, once again, was not the one who actually fired the gun. I saw two very trained shooters who were directly from sort of this organization, this group. And yeah, people aren't going to like this, but what I saw was that Charlie Kirk was someone who was indoctrinated at a very young age. I want to say 2011 or 2012. He was sort of coming up the ranks, and he signed a series of contracts. He did not realize what he was signing. And it was interesting because when I was remote viewing sort of how he got involved in everything, I usually look at like musicians and celebrities and actors and actresses. I haven't really deep dove into how politicians can get involved in this, but essentially what they do is they target these young sort of political, excited individuals to change the world and change humanity for the better. And it comes from a really good place. And they give them all these documents to sign. And it's kind of like a political document or an NDA or whatever it may be. But in and amongst that is essentially them agreeing to be a part of this organization and sort of doing certain things. If that person ends up kind of gaining access to a following or a community, then they start saying, well, you signed this contract and now you have to do our bidding. Charlie is one of those individuals who said, I will not say these things. And it was a lot about like, I don't know, there's a lot about like religious stuff. It was interesting. But he basically pushed back on that. And because he pushed back and they couldn't get him to do certain things and say certain things, they ended up taking him out. And then what happened was they ended up taking over his wife's body, right? So it could have been many different things. It could have been cloning. It could have been a body double. It could have been an actor, whatever, a mask, right?
A soul type of possession.
Yeah. So we're talking like full possession. So
you're not saying she was implicated. She wasn't a part of it, but she was possessed later.
Yeah. So she also signed contracts.
That's believable.
She also signed contracts as well in a similar way, but it was more about fame for her, right? Than making a political impact. They both ended up signing contracts. They were both sort of paired together. And then at that point where Charlie was taken out, she was essentially also removed, but taken out in a very different way. And then it was like a body snatching or a full possession. They took over her body completely and sort of did what Charlie wasn't willing to do. And that has been the case ever since. And that's why they're getting a lot of funding, and that's why they're getting a lot of traction and whatever it is, because
and everybody he disliked, Nicki Minaj, Ben Shapiro, she brings them right on stage.
Yep, right on. Yeah.
This is just crazy, like a slap in the face. And then she's profiting off his memorial, selling t-shirts, his tent that he got shot in, his photo ops. Who does this?
Wow.
Who does that?
Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
we have to realize, right, that there are forces at play that go beyond classical physics. Like, we have to understand that the individuals who have been in control of humanity are not necessarily tied to the same space-time reality that we are. And I think that that's what is a stretch for a lot of people. But that's also why you've got a lot of religious people who are sort of, the end time prophecy and, and Jesus coming back and like the demons and entities and possessions. Like there are some crossovers, but then there are some limitations. So, I try and not attach myself to one faction or one belief or one side so that I can be as objective as possible. And that's why, some people love what I say. Some people hate what I say. Usually I get people who love and hate the information that I gather because it doesn't necessarily conform to the polarity that has been created on planet Earth.
Well, that's why I bring people like you on, is so people can make up their own minds.
Yeah.
You know, like I say, I'm asking the questions. I'm not the answer guy. I'm asking the questions. And that's basically what I pride myself on Nino's Corner. So, you know, Elizabeth, I really appreciate you coming on. Once again, I'm going to show your site. Here it is, Elizabeth April. She has a hell of a YouTube channel. She's growing fast, folks. I don't know if I'll ever get her back on again. But this has been fun, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. Stay with me just one moment, because you know that has to load in the back end. So just stay with me one moment. Thanks for joining me, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you.